Welcome to the deep dive. Really glad you could join us. Today we're really diving into something quite profound. We're looking at humanity's first agreement, you could say, with the Creator, how we sometimes lost our way, and, well, how guidance kept calling us back. Our main source for this is Maulana Maududi's Seerat Sarwar-e-Aalam, specifically drawing from the Urdu audiobook's YouTube channel versions. So our goal: explore our original purpose, understand why things went sideways sometimes, and really get into this idea of a primal pact made, like, before we were even born. Pretty fascinating stuff.
It really is. And what's striking is how this isn't just, a religious story. It offers a whole framework for understanding, well, human existence, our connection to the divine. It goes deeper than just narrative.
Okay, let's unpack that. The source starts with this grand picture of creation, our purpose.
Exactly. It positions God as the absolute owner, the ruler of everything, the whole universe. And humans, we were specifically created, put on Earth, not randomly, but with a clear purpose. And we weren't just, dropped here. We were given unique gifts, things like intellect, the power to think, to reason, understand things.
Right.
And the ability to know good from evil, that discernment, plus, crucially, free will, the power to choose our own path. With all this, humanity was appointed as God's Khalifa, like a representative or maybe a steward here on Earth.
Wow, Khalifa, that's a big title, a big responsibility. So with a role that significant, what were the initial, let's say, terms and conditions with the basic instruction?
Yeah, good question. The source lays out the core directives pretty clearly. First, acknowledge God, the only owner, the ultimate authority, no one else. Humans aren't independent agents in that ultimate sense, nor are they supposed to be subject to anyone else. Only God warrants that level of worship or complete obedience.
Okay, makes sense. One ultimate authority.
Second, this life, here on Earth, it's framed as an examination hall.
It's
a test. Yeah, it's not the final stop. It's where we're evaluated.
Yeah.
Because we eventually return to God for judgment, right? And that judgment is based on how we acted during this test period.
So our actions here really matter. They have eternal consequences. That definitely changes perspective.
It does. And it sets up two basic paths. There's the correct path. You accept God's sovereignty. You live by that understanding. You try your best in the test. And the outcome is Jannah, paradise.
The reward.
The ultimate reward, yes. Then there's the incorrect path, which is basically any other way, any deviation from that original guidance.
Yeah.
And that leads to failure, disgrace, and ultimately Jahannam, hell.
Pretty clear distinction there. And the source points out something important about the start, right? Adam and Eve, the first humans,
wow,
they weren't clueless.
Not at all. That's key. They started life on Earth with, as the text says, full light of knowledge. They knew their status, knew the way they were supposed to live, which is described as Islam, meaning that submission to God's will.
Okay.
And they were explicitly tasked with living that way and, crucially, teaching it to their children, passing it down through the generations.
Right. So the knowledge was there from day one, which leads us to the next part, the deviation. This is where it gets, well, really interesting, maybe a bit sad too, because despite having the instructions, humanity started to stray. How does the source explain that drift?
Well, it wasn't like flipping a switch. It was gradual, a slow drift away from that correct way. People started associating others with God, attributing divine power to, earthly things, heavenly bodies, even other humans or non-human beings, material stuff.
Like idols or...
Idols, yes, or personifying forces of nature, or just generally elevating creation to the level of the Creator. It diluted that core principle of God's uniqueness. And alongside that, they began inventing their own rules, self-made laws, philosophies, ways of life.
Instead of following the divine guidance they already had.
Exactly. Driven more by personal desires, whims, whatever felt good or seemed right at the time. And the result, the source says, the earth became filled with mischief, with corruption. Things went downhill.
And this ties back to that free will thing you mentioned.
Absolutely. It really underscores the weight of that gift of choice. God allowed this deviation. He didn't force everyone to stay on the path because, forced obedience wouldn't really be faith, would it? The test requires genuine choice.
Okay, so humanity's veering off course. What was the divine response then? If not immediate punishment or forcing everyone back, what happened?
It was a more, let's say, guiding approach.
Yeah.
A corrective measure, but through teaching. Instead of wiping the slate clean or forcing compliance, God chose specific individuals, people from among humanity itself.
Right.
People who were already believers, already trying to follow the path. And these chosen individuals were appointed as God's messengers, prophets.
The prophets.
Yes. They received divine messages, divine laws, the Sharia directly from God. And their mission was consistent, really unified.
What was that mission?
Essentially two things. One, call people back. Invite humanity back to that original straight path they'd wandered away from. Two, encourage them to form a community, an ummah, that would live by God's law and actively work to uphold it, to prevent society from slipping back into corruption.
This wasn't just a one-off thing, right? The source talks about a long chain of these messengers.
A very long chain. It emphasizes this continuity.
Yeah.
Prophets appeared all over the place, different regions, different countries, over thousands of years.
Thousands of them.
The text says thousands, yes.
Yeah.
Spanning huge stretches of time and geography. But despite the different times and places, they all taught the same religion, that core, original way of life, that submission to the one God. And they all had the same mission, and bring people back.
But there was a pattern, wasn't there? A recurring problem.
Yes, unfortunately. While the prophets would often succeed, people would listen, communities would form, things would get back on track for a while. Over time, maybe generations later, those same communities would start to drift again.
History repeating itself.
Pretty much. Sometimes they'd corrupt the teachings themselves, adding their own interpretations, maybe mixing in local customs or superstitions, losing the original clarity. So the cycle would often need to start again.
Which brings us to, well, a really significant figure in this whole narrative, according to the source. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Exactly. The text positions his arrival as a pivotal moment. He was appointed in Arabia, and his task was fundamentally the same task as all the prophets before him.
But his audience was broader?
Yes, significantly broader. It included, common humanity, people who hadn't maybe received clear guidance before, but also the followers of previous prophets.
Ones whose communities had maybe drifted.
Precisely. Those who had inherited distorted versions of the original message. So his mission was twofold. First, like the others, guide people back to the correct path, establish that community, the Ummah, built on God's sovereignty. But second, and this is crucial, his role was also to remind humanity of something fundamental, something deep, that primal covenant, the Ahadi Alast.
Ah, yes, the Ahad Elast. That sounds incredibly important, foundational even. The source quotes the Quran here, doesn't it?
It does. It references Surah Al-Araf, verses 172, 173. It describes this moment, well, before physical existence as we know it. God bringing forth all the descendants of Adam, all of humanity from their very essence, their loins.
Wow.
All of us, and making them witnesses against their own selves. He asked them, "Am I not your Lord?"
And the response?
Yes, we bear witness.
Yeah.
Unanimous acknowledgement. That's the covenant, the primal agreement.
Okay, so why? What's the purpose of making everyone agree to this before the test even starts?
Well, the source explains it has a few key purposes. First, it establishes individual accountability deep down, So on the day of judgment, nobody can honestly say, oh, I had no idea. Ignorance isn't a valid excuse at that fundamental level.
Right.
Second, it stops people from blaming their ancestors. You can't say, well, my parents or my society led me astray. It's their fault. No, you bore witness individually. Responsibility lies with each person.
So every single human carries this inherent testimony inside them, a witness to God's oneness.
That's the implication, a kind of innate, preloaded knowledge, an inner acknowledgement.
Okay, but here's the obvious question then, for anyone listening. If we all made this promise, this covenant, why don't I remember it? I don't have a memory of standing before God and saying, yes, you are my Lord.
That's a perfectly logical question, and the source tackles it head on. Think about it. If we did have a clear conscious memory of that event, would life on Earth really be a test?
Probably not. The answer would be obvious.
Exactly. Everyone would know the truth undeniable. The whole point of the test, the element of choosing based on faith and reason, would be gone. So that direct memory isn't retained in our conscious mind.
So how does it work then, if it's not a conscious memory?
The source explains it through the concept of fitrat. Think of it as like an innate disposition, an inherent nature. It's this deep unconscious intuition or knowledge of God, of truth, that's just part of our fundamental makeup. It's woven into us.
Like an instinct.
Sort of, yeah. The text uses a great analogy. It compares fitrat to other things we just know or feel innately, like our basic moral sense, that feeling that some things are right and some are wrong, even before we're taught rules, or our appreciation for beauty, or even our capacity for logical thought.
Things that are just part of being human.
Precisely. The source argues these things aren't created by society or education or our environment. They're already there. External factors, education, culture, reflection, they can unveil these things, activate them, refine them, bring them to the surface, but they can't create that fundamental capacity. It's intrinsic.
Okay, so the fitrat is like this built-in spiritual compass pointing towards truth, even if we don't consciously remember the moment the needle was set.
That's a really good way to visualize it, an internal compass, an instinct for truth. And the source suggests it's always there, kind of bubbling under the surface, trying to get our attention, challenging things that are false or distracting us.
Right, so if we have this inner fitrat, this compass, then what's the specific job of the prophets and the divine books like the Quran? Are they just saying what we already know deep down?
That's the interesting part. They aren't introducing something totally alien or brand new. Their main job, according to the source, is to awaken that fitrat, to clarify it, to bring what's latent and unconscious into the conscious mind.
So they're like activators, reminders.
Exactly. The source uses words like reminders, dikra, also warnings, good news, clear arguments, light. They act as the external stimulus that resonates with the internal intuition. They help that inner compass reading become clear and actionable.
Ah, okay, so they connect the inner truth with outer guidance.
Precisely. They help that inherent knowledge rise to the surface, making it something we can consciously grasp and live by. And this, the source suggests, is why things like conversion embracing Islam or repentance, tawbah, turning back to God, are possible. It's not just adopting external rules.
It's an alignment.
Yes. It's an alignment of the external call to truth with that internal witness finally coming into focus. It's recognizing something you, on some deep level, already knew.
That makes a lot of sense. So how do we know this fitrat, this primal covenant idea, is actually real and still relevant today in our busy, modern, often secular lives? What proof does the source give?
It offers two main lines of reasoning, two kinds of proof. First, what it calls the proof of existence. Just look at human history. Across all cultures, all time periods, has there ever been a society, an environment that completely, totally managed to stamp out any sense of the divine, any search for ultimate truth?
Probably not entirely. It always seems to pop up somehow.
Right. Despite all sorts of attempts, philosophical, political, whatever, to suppress or replace it, that basic human impulse to look beyond the material, to acknowledge something higher, it just persists. It seems baked into us.
Okay, that's the existence part. What's the second proof?
The second is about its relevance or meaningfulness. The idea here is that whenever this innate intuition, this fitrat, is actually listened to, activated, established in someone's life or in a community, it brings tangible results. It leads to a sense of peace and guidance. There's a rightness to it. However, and this is key, for that inner feeling to translate into something practical, something concrete that shapes our actions in society effectively, it nearly always needs that external appeal.
The prophets, the books.
Exactly. The clear guidance provided by the prophets, the divine scriptures, and the communities that follow them. The inner truth needs that external structure and clarification to really blossom and create order.
So it's like we have the seed within us, the fitrat, but we need the sunlight and water of revelation to make it grow properly.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Yes.
The inner potential is there, but it needs the external catalyst and framework provided by divine guidance to be fully realized and effective in the world.
It paints a picture of this continuous cycle, doesn't it? Humanity carrying this deep truth, this inner witness, but constantly needing these external reminders, this divine guidance, to stay connected to it, to live up to it.
It really does. That internal yearning, that fitrat, is presented as this powerful, constant testament to our original connection, our primal relationship with the Creator. It's always there, nudging us back.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground today, from our creation story, the divine assignment, the drift away from it, then the role of the prophets, constantly calling humanity back, and culminating in this really deep idea of the primal covenant, the ahadi alast, and this inner fitrat.
And I think the key takeaway, connecting all those dots, is that our spiritual path isn't just about learning new things from outside. It's maybe more about rediscovering something, acknowledging, and then acting on a truth that's already imprinted on our souls, a truth we've already testified to.
So for everyone listening, that's quite a thought, isn't it? That deep down, etched into your very being, is this fundamental truth, this agreement you already made, constantly, quietly trying to guide you. Maybe the real deep dive isn't just reading texts or listening to discussions like this one. Maybe it's also about listening really carefully to the quietest part of your own heart, that inner testimony. What might change if you really tuned into that ancient whisper? Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.